The dust swirled thick around the Grayson homestead as the whole town gathered for the barn raising. Men hefted timber while women spread quilts and unpacked baskets of cornbread and preserves. Children darted between the horses, their laughter mixing with the ring of hammers and the scrape of saws. That's when young Mercy Grayson came stumbling out of the house, her face flushed red as a turkey's wattle, her mother Clara close behind. "You get back here this instant, girl," Clara hollered, her voice cutting through the din like a bullwhip crack. "Don't you dare walk away from me when I'm speaking to you." Every soul at that barn raising stopped what they were doing. Hammers hung suspended mid-swing. Conversations died on lips. Even the children fell silent, sensing the storm brewing between mother and daughter. Mercy whirled around, her 18-year-old frame trembling with rage. "I'm sick to death of your constant nagging, old woman," she spat. "Every blessed thing I do, you find fault with it." Clara's weathered hand flew to her chest. "How dare you speak to me that way? After everything I've sacrificed." "Sacrificed?" Mercy's voice rose to a shriek. "All you've ever done is make my life miserable." And then it happened. Quick as lightning, Mercy drew back her boot and kicked her mother square in the shin. Clara stumbled backward, crying out in pain and shock, and fell hard onto the packed earth. The silence that followed was so complete you could hear the wind whistle through the barn's half-finished frame. 60 pairs of eyes stared at Mercy Grayson in horror. Women gasped and clutched their children closer. Men removed their hats and shook their heads in disgust. Old Thomas Weatherby, the preacher, stepped forward. "Child," he said, his voice heavy with judgment, "honoring thy father and mother is the Lord's commandment. What you've done here, it's an abomination." Mercy looked around at all those faces filled with revulsion and righteous anger. Her neighbors, people she'd known her whole life, now looked at her like she was something that had crawled out from under a rock. Even her own father stood frozen by the barn, his face gray with shame. Without another word, Mercy turned and ran. She ran past the horses, past the fields of corn, ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out beside Willow Creek. That night, as the town buzzed with talk of Mercy's shameful behavior, Clara Grayson sat alone in her kitchen, dabbing at her bruised shin with a cold cloth. She'd expected to feel angry, expected to plan some terrible punishment for her daughter's transgression. Instead, she found herself remembering. She remembered being 18 herself, wild and headstrong, desperate to escape her own mother's iron grip. She remembered the fury that had burned in her chest when her mother had forbidden her to marry young Samuel Grayson, calling him worthless dirt farmer trash. She remembered the bitter words they'd exchanged, words that cut deeper than any physical blow. And she remembered that her mother had died with those words still hanging between them, unhealed and unforgiven. Clara rose stiffly from her chair and walked to the window. In the moonlight, she could see Mercy sitting by the creek, her shoulders shaking with sobs. The next morning, the whole town expected Clara to march down to Sheriff Morgan's office and press charges. They expected her to throw her ungrateful daughter out of the house, to disown her publicly as she deserved. Instead, Clara Grayson did something that shocked them all. She baked Mercy's favorite apple pie. When Mercy finally crept back to the house, expecting to face her mother's wrath, she found Clara sitting at the kitchen table with 2 plates and 2 forks, the pie cooling between them. "Sit down, daughter," Clara said quietly. Mercy sat, her eyes red-rimmed and wary. "I've been thinking all night," Clara began, cutting 2 generous slices of pie. "About when I was your age. About my own mother, God rest her soul." She pushed a plate toward Mercy. "I was angry at her for so long, I forgot to see the love underneath all her worry and scolding." Mercy stared at the pie, then at her mother's face. "Mama, Hush now," Clara said gently. "I'm not saying what you did was right. It wasn't. But I reckon I haven't been right either. I've been so afraid of losing you, of you making mistakes, that I forgot you need room to grow into the woman you're meant to be." Tears began to spill down Mercy's cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Mama. I don't know what came over me. I was just so angry, And I felt like you didn't trust me, didn't believe I could. I know, honey. I know. Clara reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. From now on, we'll try to do better. Both of us. When word spread through town about Clara's reaction, about the pie and the forgiveness instead of punishment, folks didn't know what to make of it. Some said she'd gone soft, that Mercy had gotten away with something unforgivable. But others, especially the older women who'd raised daughters of their own, began to nod in understanding. They remembered their own battles with stubborn, headstrong girls. They remembered the sharp words and slammed doors, the tears and the making up. And they began to see that maybe Clara Grayson's revenge wasn't about punishment at all. Maybe it was about something far more powerful, the kind of love that breaks cycles instead of continuing them, the kind of grace that heals wounds instead of deepening them. Years later, when Mercy had daughters of her own, she would tell them the story of the day she kicked her grandmother in front of the whole town, and how her mother's unexpected response had taught her that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in striking back, but in choosing to understand. The apple pie recipe became a family tradition, passed down through generations. Not just the ingredients and measurements, but the story that went with it. A reminder that love, real love, sometimes looks nothing like what the world expects, and that the most powerful revenge against anger and hurt is often simply choosing to do better.